Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the New Scotland Historical Society. It is the 27th of September 2007, approximately 2:30 p.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clarke. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Charles, B as in bird, Clarke, C-L-A-R-K-E.
Okay.
Date of birth, Brooklyn. Lived there 1 year. Moved to Albany, New York. My father got a different job.
When were you born?
Born in November 30th, 1916.
Okay.
And by the way,
okay.
that was Thanksgiving Day when I was born. But they changed the Thanksgiving date to the 24th.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What was your educational background prior to going into service?
Prior to service,
Yes, sir.
I went to Hartwick Academy for, that was a preparatory school. And then I attended Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York for 2 years. And then marriage overtook us.
Okay.
So we quit.
All right. Do you remember, you went into the service in May of 1941.
Right.
Were you drafted?
Drafted.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that was quite interesting, I was the first married man from the town of New Scotland to be drafted.
Okay. Where did you go for your basic training?
Basic training was Camp Landing, Florida.
Okay. Where was that in Florida?
Camp Landing. In the Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
No, in the kind of panhandle.
How long was that basic training?
90 days.
Okay.
Now you must have, being in May of 41, you must have been using World War I.
One equipment.
Equipment.
Absolutely. I was in the 35th Field Artillery, which actually was a branch of the regular Army. And the equipment, as you say, was hard rubber tired. They were called 155 millimeter rifles. And the reason they were called rifles because they had a long barrel and shot about 3 or 4 times the distance that a howitzer 155 shoots.
So all of this was left over from World War I?
All left over, and excepting the prime movers. And the prime movers were National Harvester diesels.
International Harvester.
International Harvester diesels. And they would start on gas and then throw them over on the diesel. In fact, I was the chief instructor on teaching the fellows how to run those things.
Were you still using the 1903 rifles?
Yes, yeah.
And the World War I helmets?
Didn't have any helmets.
Oh, no helmets.
No helmets. No protection. In fact, the reason probably there weren't enough to go around at that particular time. Everything was rush.
Now you lived in tents at the time?
We lived in tents on a platform. 3 people, 3 soldiers, put it that way, to a tent. Very comfortable. Except in the wintertime in Jacksonville area, it does get cold. It gets a little snow.
How long were you down there for?
Well, I was there all the time. I was only in for about 9 months, 8 or 9 months in the service. And I have a CDD discharge, which is Certified Disability Discharge. I had ear trouble, and it went from worse to worse. And firing the guns didn't help a bit. So eventually, when I went to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for 30 days, and then they let me go.
Okay. Now, while you were training down there, you did a lot of training then with the artillery pieces?
Not a lot of shooting because the ammunition was so scarce.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but we did a lot of dry runs on it, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I did not move on with my fellow troopers. We'll call them fellow soldiers. They went to various other units, and they kept me there as an instructor.
Mhm.
So being a farm boy, I think helped because I was pretty good with the machinery and stuff.
Mhm. You were there when Pearl Harbor happened. Do you remember hearing about it in December 7th? Because you were discharged on the 30th.
On the 30th, yeah. We heard very, very little about it except on our radios. That's
Mhm.
right, yeah.
No one was talking about it?
No,
or?
no.
Uh-huh. All right. When you went into you said you were in the hospital, what did they do for your hearing?
They didn't do anything for the hearing. When I left, I had, I think, in the neighborhood of 510 or something like that. No, 520. And they said that, frankly, it would get worse. I'd never be able to hear again. I'd have to wear aids of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it turned out that they did heal up fairly well, and I could hear enough to carry on a conversation. And it wasn't until later years that I had to use the earpieces.
Mm-hmm.
But the VA is great to me. I have 3 sets of them, and every time something new comes out, they give me a new set.
Mm-hmm.
These, for instance, I have a little button to push, and I push the button if I want to get room noises, or like now, just talking to you, I press the button back again, and I get forward voice return.
Okay. What was your daily life like while you were in Florida?
Up at 5, the usual time, and then the detail after training, as I said, was I was a training sergeant, chief of section. So then it was my detail to take my men, which I had we had 4 guns, and there was a total of A, B, C, D, E, F. There were 6 batteries in the 35th Field Artillery, and we were Battery F, and we had 4 guns. So, and there was about 106 or 7 men in the whole battery, so that gave each one of us about 18 men or something like that to handle in detail. And we practiced setting up the gun, breaking it down, traveling with it. Eventually we went on maneuvers up in the Georgia area, in the Okefenokee Swamp, I guess, area. And we were doing maneuvers there, and that's where my problem started. I got a cold, and then the cold went from bad to worse. Treated me for pneumonia, and eventually my eardrums went bad. So that's the story right there.
Okay.
Not much, not very interesting.
Well, it is. Where and when was this taken? If you just hold it up like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, just a second.
Yes.
They were all taken on the same day. Yeah, this was right in our camp, and I was on detail sergeant, so I had detail of the whatever the men were there, 100 and some odd men. Our Battery F.
You said there's something unusual about your pistol, though. You were telling me before.
Yeah, no bullets. Ammunition was in great demand at that particular time, and we didn't have any bullets. In fact, before that, when I was, you don't wear a gun until you're a sergeant. And so before that we had rifles. And we were issued 3 cartridges with each rifle. So you can see that we couldn't do too much with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's that other
Now you
photo?
have another.
Oh, this was just taken at Camp Landing again, and we had laid things out. This is the size of the projectile which was used in the gun. As I said, a 155 millimeter, approximately 6 inches, and it would fire a distance of about 20 miles accurately. And it was interesting, if you stood directly behind the gun, not too close, but behind the gun, you could see the projectile going in the distance, like that. And we had 2 lanyards. One was a 10-foot lanyard, and then the other was a 20-foot lanyard to fire them. And they always gave me the 10-foot lanyard, and it, just the concoction of the thing was enough to almost knock you off your feet.
Mm-hmm. Now, what you're holding in your left hand there, is that like a powder bag?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The projectile was put in. The projectile weighed 96 pounds, and it went on a carrier, and 2 men carried it. And when they come to the, there was another man standing there opening the breech. He'd open the breech, and then they'd carry this and have to lift it about neck or shoulder height. And at 96 pounds, even for 2 men, to hold it at an awkward angle like that was very.
So they put that up in and then put the powder bag in behind it?
This is rammed in as hard as they can possibly ram it in, and then the powder is put in behind it. And the powder, I don't know whether it shows here, I can't see, but came in a large tubular sack with a little sack on the end of it, and that little sack was to make it a Super X. So in other words, it was a supercharge.
Oh, okay.
So, but the first time we fired them, we used the regular charge, and then also, because it was a good many years since they'd been fired, we dug a hole in the ground, and as we fired it, we all put our heads down because we didn't know whether the gun's going to blow up or what it's going to do. So, but there were none of them exploded, and the only fatality of the 1,000-some-odd men in the complete battery 35, or artillery 35, was 1 man, and that was due to the loading. He either tripped or stumbled, and the projectile, instead of hitting the breech where the hole was to go in, it hit it below it and exploded.
Oh, wow.
The whole outfit cannot say it had a interesting part in the war. They went from Camp Landing, Florida, to Egypt, and they stayed in Egypt for quite some length of time, and then they were moved to Italy, and they never fired 1 single round at the enemy. So just due to the, I believe, the ungainliness of the size of the equipment. It wasn't like pulling a howitzer with a truck or something like that that can move 50 miles in a couple of hours. Our top speed was like 6 miles an hour.
Now, the International Harvester diesels that pulled these, was that a track vehicle?
This was a track.
It was a track vehicle.
Yeah. Eventually, that was all replaced by super rubber-tired large diesel tractors, and of course the guns were replaced with more modern guns. I didn't see that done.
Okay. So they never used horses at all at
no.
that time? I know we talked to some batteries that early that did.
Yeah. The only horse that I saw in the year that I was there at Landing was the Colonel horse, and he was in charge of the whole shebang, and it was kind of fun to see him coming because he'd be riding his horse, all dressed up, and geez, the uniform and the stars and stuff on it. Yeah, we all stood, there's the king. which is the way it's supposed to be in the Army.
Yeah. Were there any other stories you remember that you want to mention?
Not actually stories that I can recall very
Okay.
well.
So you were discharged from the hospital. Did you have any problems with your ears after you were discharged?
Oh yes, yeah, many years.
Was you hurt?
Many years.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I wore out a couple of doctors. They were older to start with,
Mhm.
of course, and they died, and I can't even recall their names now, but they were the best in Albany. And then I went for a number of years with absolutely no problems whatsoever, which I was very thankful for. And then a few years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they started acting up again. So I went in the VA, and we've had the VA service since then.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, that they are certainly very, very good organization and doing the best they possibly can for each and every veteran.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Okay?